with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Rich, it has been another fascinating week. What do you think's going on with Brexit? Prime Minister.
What do I think was going on with Brexit?
I mean, let's start off with that.
Well, first of all,
let's unpack that.
No, I think the first thing you need to do is get a good single malt scotch. That's the first thing you're going to do. All right?
You need
take a couple of hits of that.
You need a case.
Yeah, and then
just in case.
Yeah, really. And then you're going to figure out what to do, because I don't think anyone knows what's going on with Brexit right now, except May be leaving, which is interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is kind of interesting where she says, "Hey, look, vote for this thing, and I'll resign. I'm gone."
I don't get that one. Usually is, if you don't vote for this, I'll leave. Vote for this, and I'm out of here. I don't. You know what the good thing is, though? I was thinking about this. She has the opportunity to be the prime minister in the sequel to Love Actually #2. Just saying. You never know.
Hey, but UK is not the only country that's going crazy these days.
We are in a really strange place. That's all I've got to say.
Democrat socialist Democrats.
Well, I
mean, they're certainly ruling the roost these days over there on the left side of the aisle there, Rich.
Well, you know what I find amazing is that the same title of the folks who ran East Berlin. Well, and everything went fine there. I'm sure everything was just Jim Dandy for them.
Yeah, but that's in our country too. I mean, you take a look at the politics and you say, what is going on? What is going on? Hey, look, we're gonna carry on with this conversation. Socialist Democrats. Would you ever think? Isn't that what the East Germans were called?
That's exactly. That's what they were. And you know what they did? Oh, that's right. They shot people trying to leave. Not a great idea.
And they took a lot of steroids.
Not nice people. Yeah, really. Exactly. Yeah.
You see some of these
they also,
Olympic athletes that they
No. Everybody else got an 8.8 in the Olympics. The East Germans handed out 3s. Yeah. They're so frustrated.
Well, they were also cheats.
Well, maybe if they had heat, it would have been better. I don't know.
Sounds a lot like our
you never know.
Socialist Democrats.
Yeah, they had it together.
Hey, we're very pleased to have on right now Carol Roth, radio host. We love radio hosts. Best-selling author and investor. She's a recovering investment banker. I got to tell you, I work with a lot of investment bankers. I want to know what a recovering investment banker is. And she's the author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Entrepreneur Equation. Very, very fascinating body of work, and we're very happy to have her with us today. Carol, welcome to Made in America.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be with both of you, and I can tell you I'm a lot of things, as you mentioned, but the number one thing I am not is a socialist.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
We cleared the air on good. That. I'm feeling better. I'm breathing better, too.
We would have had to end this interview. But anyway, we're all here. We're all good. And you have an opinion piece at Fox News, and you appear at Fox a lot, and you've done a lot of co-hosting there. We love it. And your piece... Sorry, AOC, capitalism is not the problem. And, of course, I'm talking about Ocasio-Cortez, the Democrat socialist from Queens, New York, who got elected with 16,000 votes and has somehow taken over the party. I mean, you're a recovering investment banker. I mean, that is incredible leverage. 16,000 votes and you take over the Democrat Party. So, Carol, what do you think about that?
Pretty staggering thing. It's a strange phenomenon when you have a pretty woman who has a strong opinion. The opinion may not be based on anything factual, but she says it very strongly, and it shows very well. It's young, it's fresh, it's exciting, and unfortunately, because she says all of these things that are so crazy, people can't let them go, and so that just gets her more attention, and it's sort of fed on itself. And now all of a sudden, she's being regarded as a serious person when everything that's come out of her mouth has not been serious at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it is entertaining. I'll say that. I haven't had so much fun in a long. We used to do a cronyism report when Obama was in every week, and that was so simple because it was rampant. It was all over the place. Now we have to do an AOC report every week, and it's really a lot of fun to cover it.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's scary. It's scary because I'm involved in social media, and I see all of these fanboys and fangirls who think that she's actually talking about important things and believe the things that she's saying, whether or not that there's any kernel of truth to them. So fun, but scary and fun at the same time.
But the socialist Democrats, the Democrat socialists in our country, they really do believe that capitalism is the problem. I mean, it is a defunct, stupid system that has created all of these inequities and all of these problems, have kept all these good people down. They really, truly believe that with a straight face. They really do, don't they, Carol?
I think some of them believe it, and they believe it because they have no understanding of what socialism is, what capitalism is, and really of any basic economics principles, including AOC, who has a economics degree, if you can believe it, from a major university. And then I think there are others who don't believe it at all, but believe that they can amass power by spewing lies. And, that's what many politicians do and have done for many, many years. So I think that by playing on the emotions of the people who are too ignorant to understand the basics of economics and of capitalism and socialism, they're actually people who are cementing their own power. And as long as they stay in power and they stay with the money, which is what a system like socialism does, they don't really care.
I heard a great quote today from Louis Gomez, representative from Texas. Great guy. Yep. Really enjoy listening to him. He's on a lot of TV shows, radio shows, and so forth. He said, George Orwell didn't get 1984 wrong. He got it right. He just got the wrong year. And I heard that when I was driving and said, "Oh my God, I got to use that line." I have to give him credit for that, but that's a brilliant line because the truth of the matter is, it wasn't 1984. It really is this year, and we do exist in a very, very strange place where I'm trying to understand the agenda for the Democrats, and everything I see takes us so far to the left. I don't know what their agenda is, except to destroy everything that we have right now.
I mean, literally destroy everything. And it's amazing as you watch things playing out in real time. I mean, you can see what's happening in Venezuela, an example of a country that's moved towards socialism and is completely up in flames, literally and figuratively at the same time. So they can see this happening. Nobody is rushing to go there. Those people are all trying to come here so they can participate in the capitalistic system. And if you look at all examples around the globe, India and China, as they've moved away from central planning towards more free market activity, they've done better. You can look at Africa, places where they've gone back and forth. Every time you move towards central planning, you have less growth. Every time you move towards capitalism, you have more growth. There is no example in history of socialism ever working, yet they want to take the greatest country with the most growth and most prosperity in the entire world and tear it down. It fundamentally makes no sense.
And Carol, it's also, crazy stuff too going on over there. I mean, a lot of them, the centrist Democrats, there are still some centrist Democrats. At least they pretend to be. People, I'm talking about Joe Biden. He's drinking the Kool-Aid right now.
Drinking the Kool-Aid. He's drinking the scotch. He came out against those bad white people the other day.
That's all the white guys
those
now.
Bad white guys.
But yet,
are you kidding me?
But yet, in the ostensibly most diverse presidential candidates in history, you got three white guys on the Democrat side. That's leading.
Old white guys.
Two old white and one
guys.
younger one.
Two old white guys.
So how do you square that circle?
I have no idea. I always say there's nothing like for the fresh face of Bernie Sanders, who in his late 70s has been in government since the beginning of time. And that's the funniest part is they're trying to paint him as this outsider to the system. He has been in government since the beginning of time. And so all of the things that have happened under his watch, but somehow he's this amazing outsider. I think everyone's just lost the plot completely.
But, Carol, let me ask you this, and because you just brought it up before. If, in fact, we watch Venezuela completely going down the tubes, horrible situation, humanitarian crisis. We see people swimming from Cuba to Key West to save. I lived on Key Biscayne for 3 years, and I used to watch the rafts come in. If the people are willing to risk their lives in shark-infested waters and so forth, to come to the United States, and the kids today cannot understand why they're doing that, that is a scary thought.
And it's happening, Carol, it's happening right now. I mean, I have a home in Isla Mirada, and there was a Cuban life, one of these life rafts. One of these, the Cuban raft, you know, that they get, it washed up on the beach right next to my house, right? You know, my neighbor's lawn. This is happening right now.
And you realize people were on that and they died.
Yeah. And you don't have to go back in history for this. This happened last week.
No, it's right, exactly, real time. I've actually suggested that we implement a socialist exchange program, and we can take all of these people who think it's so wonderful in these socialist nations, and we can exchange them for the people who want to come and participate in capitalism. And I think that makes everybody happy, so that nobody has to risk life and limb. And if you think socialism is so great, you can go live under that system.
So, Carol, I mean, we're having a lot of fun here. Do you have a time to stick around for another segment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm here for you guys.
We're with Carol Roth, radio host, best-selling author, investor, and really a great guest on our radio show today. Stick around. We just got started here, folks.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Roffin, and we are joined with Carol Roth, radio host, best-selling author, and investor. She's a recovering investment banker and New York Times best-selling author of The Entrepreneur Equation, and we're just getting started here today. Hey, Carol, here's some headlines for you. Bernie Sanders' new speechwriter once praised Maduro as an economic miracle. I mean, this knucklehead down in Venezuela now, that they have no electricity. I mean, like one of the richest countries in the world, and they don't have any electricity. I mean, and then here's another headline, a little bit different.
That wasn't The Onion or a satire headline. That was a real headline, correct?
Yeah, that was a real headline.
That was a real headline.
This is a fact, Jack.
And this is the stuff this is the world we live in right now. Democrats love a wealth tax, another headline, but Europeans are ditching the idea. I mean, don't they read the papers?
No, that's the problem. Is we have things so great in America that the young folks today have no sense of what's going on anywhere else in the world. They have no sense of history, and they're caught up in the social media drama and the headlines, and that's really all they can get their heads wrapped around. So they come out with this warped sense that somehow things are bad and that they're not doing well and that there's this inequality, quote-unquote, problem, while at the same time we've mentioned more billionaires. Extreme poverty around the world has fallen to single digits from 50% of the population in the 1970s. I mean, the statistics over and over and over again, and the examples that you've cited, they disprove everything that they're talking about, but they just have no concept. I mean, if you go back to the saying, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, every culture around the world has that. In Asia, it's rice paddies to rice paddies in 3 generations. And I think it's because when people struggle and become successful, they don't allow the younger generations to go through that same struggle and to see what's going on. They shelter them. And I think that's what's happening, that these kids have become so sheltered, and they just sort of start believing this rhetoric, and everything's so good that they have no hunger or appetite, and they're believing these ridiculous things.
Well, now that you said kids, you jogged a thought for me. So I had to think about AOC. Let's just call her AOC.
Yes.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
There you go.
Well, what she does remind me of the kids, because she is a kid from my point of view. She's about the age of my younger child.
This is her first full-time job.
But when they voted in the Senate the other day, and the Democrat, none of the Democrats, they voted present. They voted
You're talking about the
new Green Deal, the Green New Deal.
Right.
And then she lost it. She absolutely lost it because she got rejected. Well, why would McConnell, why would he do that? Why would he do that? This is a waste of time. People are dying. Don't you people get it? She lost her temper. And she lost her temper because she wasn't getting her way, which reminds me like children.
She wouldn't want people to vote on her own legislation. I mean, go figure that. You put this out there saying this is something we need. Everybody is dying. The sky is falling. We're all going to die in 12 years. If it's that urgent, you probably want people to vote on that and act on that pretty quickly. And that's the issue. I mean, she's 29 years old, which I don't know what you guys were doing at 29, but I had had a lot of experience by that point in time. This is her first full-time job, which, by the way, she walked into a six-figure job in her first full-time job. And, I mean, that's pretty staggering for being 29 years old.
Yeah, and incredible. And you know, they say, well, Carol, they said that was a political trick. I mean, bringing this legislation before the Senate, it was a political trick. It wasn't,
yeah.
You know, I mean, that was a political, but voting at the House to override President Trump's veto, I mean, that wasn't a political trick. Somebody
you
can't have it both ways here.
Was it a political trick to put out the legislation to be voted on? Was that not a political trick? Was that not grandstanding? If you didn't think it was ready, then why were you putting it out there? It's just incomprehensible. And, you know, not that Congress, you know, has ever had, you know, a lot of confidence or faith from the American people or really great approval rating, but it really has gotten to the point where it's somewhat of a playpen at this point.
Well, you know, I like your comment. There's a comment in the piece that you did recently. It says, new poll says Ocasio-Cortez is well known, but mostly disliked across the country. So, and what is that? She has become, I think you would agree, Carol, that she's become the albatross around the neck of the Democratic Party because she could drag them down.
But and also, Carol, to add on to that, you know, over on the Republican side, you have President Trump now, you know, in the Department of Justice supporting to try to get rid of Obamacare. And now you have the Democrats all happy that the Republicans are shooting themselves in the foot. So on one side with the Green New Deal, the Democrats are shooting themselves in the foot. And now Obamacare has become much more popular, especially some of the provisions there, the pre-existing conditions and so forth. The Democrats now are doing high fives saying, yeah, bring on that Obamacare discussion. Who's at greater risk?
It's like stupidity wars. I mean, I certainly think that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez can't help herself. She has that narcissistic personality that just needs to have constant attention and constantly needs to say things. And because she doesn't have any foundational principles and, frankly, not a lot of knowledge, I do think that is going to continue to wear thin over time. But that being said, the Republicans haven't done themselves any favors here. I mean, they had the opportunity, way before Obamacare to come up with their own plan for health care. They didn't do so. Obamacare passed. Then we had the House and the Senate to the Republicans, and they still didn't come up with an alternative plan. You can't just at this point pull something away from everyone without having a relevant replacement. And I don't understand what they have been doing for, a decade at this point, how they can't have some basic plan that covers things like pre-existing conditions, as you said, and frankly opens up the free markets and more transparency into the system. I mean, the fact that there's no competition across state lines for health insurance and that they've completely limited the market is part of the reason why everything is so expensive. And the fact that they can't just come up with something simple and agree on it, is really frustrating.
One final comment, Carol, that I just thought of. Thinking about the way Ocasio-Cortez speaks, she's very animated with her hands. I was just thinking, Neal, if she was a puppeteer and she had her hands in puppets doing a puppet show, her puppets would have ADD. Just saying.
Hey, Carol, it's been great. We really appreciate you being on the show.
Carol Roth, much for having me, guys.
Talk radio host, best-selling author, investor, New York Times best-selling author. Incredible. Hey, Rich, man, it's always wonderful to be talking to incredible entrepreneurs. We got an entrepreneur coming on, built an incredible company in the state of California. Despite tariffs that were supposed to be helping him, that are actually hurting him. This is everything we've been talking about. Peter Spinuzza, the incredible entrepreneur from Imperial Range, a commercial range manufacturing company in California. He's coming on next. You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neal Asbury's Made in America.
A very big welcome to you today. We're glad you're back. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, I think we're going to be talking about this Democrat socialist thing for quite a while. I mean, I can't imagine what it's going to be like a year from now when we're kind of getting ready for election time.
No, it's going to be a lot more fun because they're going to get even farther left. Remember I said we're going to see things that we've never seen before in politics? It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be bizarre. And they're only getting warmed up right now. They're only getting warmed up. But hey, look, we got a great country. We got a beautiful country. This country is so resilient. Whatever is thrown at it, somehow it comes out better. It really, really does. And we got a very diverse country. Places like California, the southern states, the Northeast, the Midwest. I mean, in manufacturing in these parts of the country, sometimes, it's very favorable. You got governments who are really helping you and supporting you. Other areas, are over-regulating, over-taxing, and are making it difficult. California, we've talked a lot about, Rich. Tough place to do business. I mean, they got a government out there regulating, taxing. It's a difficult place. I was out there a couple of weeks ago looking at a couple more companies to buy. And in California, Southern California, Northern California, incredible companies, incredible entrepreneurs, very resilient, very tough guys and girls doing business in a state that, I own a manufacturing facility in Northern California. And I got to tell you, it's tough. But still, there's entrepreneurs in California that's doing an incredible job, making incredible companies and making a huge impact not only in our country and around the world. And one of those companies, Southern California, is Imperial Commercial Cooking Equipment Company. And its owner, its founder, its entrepreneur who has driven this company, made it into this incredible business that it is around the world, is Peter Spinoza. And he's joining us right now. Peter, welcome to Made in America.
Thank you. Nice to see and talk to you this afternoon.
Hey, Peter, I'm in South Florida and Rich is too, and we got polio tropical in South Florida. And in fact, they're quite all over the place. And Rich, did you know that Peter manufactures those charbroilers that you see making all that chicken?
Well, that's why it tastes so good.
That's why
I happen to like polio tropical.
But here you are, a company in Southern California making these incredible charbroilers, shipping them across the country to places like Polio Tropical. But Peter, your products are all over the world. All over the world. I know in some of the best hotels in the world, they find your products, and you're making them in Southern California. How difficult is it, and how do you find, working in Southern California, what have you tried to do to kind of insulate yourself to some of the, what we believe is over-regulation, over-taxation, government getting in places that they shouldn't be?
Well, we do have a lot of challenges in Southern California. Actually, our company is private and family-held over 70 years, since 1957, the founding. And so I've been at it 40 years as a CEO. So we've kind of endured, if we can endure the rigors of California, I think it prepares us for anything else. So as you know, we have very high requirements in terms of air and water quality. Even some new regulations came out this year. We have a lot of challenges in terms of workers' benefits, which is okay, but they raised minimum wage, they raised benefit requirements this year, and quite a bit of other stuff. But I think that kind of challenges us as a company to become more efficient, more automated, and more resilient.
Incredible. And the other thing, Rich, I'd like to bring up, we've talked about this, about how the tariffs, were meant to protect people like Peter. But listen to this. Peter, am I right that we have a 25% duty on stainless steel and aluminum, right, coming into the country, which is the main material that you use to manufacture your commercial cooking equipment, ranges, fryers, and so forth, charbroilers? And if those products happen to be imported from, say, China, there is 0% tariff. So actually, these tariffs are penalizing you being an American manufacturer. I mean, that's counterintuitive. Is that indeed what's happening?
And there's one more dimension to it. As you just said, the tariffs went up 25%. The finished goods were not affected, so they get a competitive advantage. But the third major thing is we were already buying U.S.-made steel. And they made a corresponding increase of 22%. So it really became ass backward. It really backfired on us. And so now we're having to overcome that. And it's not just steel. Now everything from screws to motors to electronic components that have been touched by imported product have also increased. And you see that throughout our industry. Many of our competitors have increased their prices twice this past year to try to keep up with it.
Incredible.
But what's the net effect of that? I mean, really, how do you compete with it? Is it product loyalty? Is it obviously it's well-made products? I mean, the point of the fact is you're produced here, right? You get it. Yes. You can order something, produce it, and get it shipped and in place where it needs to be for the new build out faster than being anywhere else in the world. Is that how you maintain the competitive advantage?
Well, I think there's no substitute for high quality, because the American environment for restaurants and hotels is like no other in the world. If you've ever eaten in Europe or other countries, they really pace it. They don't have these Denny's with 24/7. They don't have a lot of fast food. Their equipment is not built to be durable. It just doesn't last here. They don't have the requirement over there to do it. They don't understand it in many ways. So American-made, and especially Imperial, is very high quality, high performance. We have a lot of high performance environment. They can't just suddenly decide to change because prices go up. I'm talking about Applebee's. We have Olive Garden. We have Red Lobster, Pollo Tropical, as you said, Jersey Mike's. We have Denny's. These kind of chains really require high performance and quality. That's kept us in the game. They don't like price increases, but they endure it.
They endure it to get the quality. And, I mean, and Peter, what is also crazy about this is that our trade deficit with China continues to go up.
Which is astounding.
And this is supposed to protect you so you do more business, yet it's hurting you. And yet our trade deficit is still going up, 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 up. And I guess maybe it's because they're making you uncompetitive, and people in China who are manufactured finished goods that have zero tariffs, where you have to pay tariffs on your raw materials, has now got a competitive advantage. Like you said, this is ass backwards, Peter. I just can't say that enough.
Yes, it wasn't well thought out. And I'm talking about the cooking equipment industry. Refrigeration, I think, may be a little different. I understand some of the finished goods are being taxed, but I don't really understand on what base. We have worked with our national association, which is National Association of Food Equipment Manufacturers, and we've asked them for some of the rhyme and reason, and apparently the tariffs and the codes are fairly complex. So it's very hard to anticipate what's going to be affected in terms of our components or our finished goods or materials.
Well, Peter, it just seems to be very random, and somehow you got hurt, and it's just wrong. It's just not should be that. I mean, you are what this country's all about. I mean, you are the American dream. You're a very successful entrepreneur. You're out there fighting. You're a tough guy. You're hiring all your people. You're paying these minimum wages. They're going up every year. You're paying great benefits. You're making great product. You're investing in technology. You're doing everything right, yet your government is not supporting you. And something is wrong with that. Peter, thanks for being on the show.
Well,
unfortunately, we're out of time. We've got to get you back soon, though. I mean, you've been an incredible guest. We really love what you're doing out there.
Well, thank you. We're glad to produce a high-quality product, which is 100% made in the USA.
Very good. God bless you for that.
Thank you.
Coming up, we have Justin Danof from the National Center for Public Policy Research, and he's at the Free Enterprise Project. You don't want to miss this. What in the world is going on at Starbucks and their rejection of diversity?
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, Starbucks is in the news. Now, first of all, let's talk about Howard Schultz.
Let's talk about nice Howard Schultz and how quickly they turn.
I mean, this guy's he's a bit crazy, right? I mean, he's trying to kind of feel his way around running for president, right? And he's saying, hey, look, Democrats are all crazy, and this Green New Deal thing, and, they don't have it right. It's going to shut the country down. And, the Republicans and Trump, he's just a crazy guy. The country needs someone like me. The country needs who's in the center and going to do all of this. And yet the company he comes from has, totally turned its head on diversity. Starbucks is worse than some of these most liberal colleges that you see that doesn't allow any sort of thought that they might disagree with, like conservative thought, even mainstream conservative thought. You might as well be talking about, killing their children or something. They're coming against conservatives as if they're the most evil people in the world. And now you got a major company like Starbucks who says they don't want conservatives around either.
Well, yeah. How do you
deal with this?
The irony of all ironies?
And yet the guy who's founded this company says, I want to represent all Americans because, nobody's in the center here.
Well, the guy who founded the company, who's so far to the left, not far to the left enough. Not far to the left enough. He came up with all these great ideas for the coffee company, and yet the truth of the matter is they turn on him on a dime. On a dime, they want to change what they're doing. It's not good enough. They have to make it more liberal for each other. So I just find it astounding that Howard Schultz, who thought he would be, this is a shoo-in. This is the right thing to do. But my God, doesn't everybody drink Starbucks? Of course they do. Particularly all the kids. All they do is walk around with cups of coffee. They were doing that on television, on the doctor shows. All the doctors on all these shows on ABC and NBC and CBS, walking around with a coffee in their hand. Starbucks. That's what it's all about. And yet, when you come down to it, all those people, including those working there, came down against the guy who founded it. I find that to be astounding. Astounding.
Well, they're coming out against anybody who might have any sort of thought that might be contrary to theirs. What kind of free country does that? Hey, we're very pleased to have on the show Justin Danof from the National Center for Public Policy Research. And he's from the Free Enterprise Project. We love free enterprise here at Made in America. Justin, welcome to Made in America.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on today.
So, boy, how do you untangle this mess? What in the world is going on at Starbucks? And why are they so objecting to diversity or having any sort of conservative thought within their business and on their board of directors? After all, I would suspect nearly 50% of their customers would have that sort of political persuasion, and yet they totally and absolutely reject. Maybe their customers should go somewhere else.
I kind of agree with that last part, but let's spin it back since you guys were talking so much about Howard Schultz. Talk about eating your own. For decades, Howard Schultz ran Starbucks as one of the most leftist companies in the United States of America, promoting liberal politicians, liberal policies, liberal ideas, every single opportunity he got. And so now that he announces that he's potentially running for president as more of a business-minded centrist, which of course is a lie, he's still running very far left of center, he's just not willing to go down the AOC route and have business be controlled from a central government agency. And so I like to say that he has become the B word and the C word, and they're not the two pejorative words you're thinking. He's a billionaire who happens to believe in capitalism. And no longer do individuals that are the B word or C word have a place inside today's. And so,
he's also a white male too. So that's, I guess, 3 strikes and you're out. Huh?
They've struck those a long.
Oh, and he's self-made. He's self-made. That doesn't work because if you didn't build that. So that doesn't work.
That's right. So he has about 19 strikes against him.
Oh no, he's in trouble.
But is this guy? He's not stupid. Who does he think his constituents are? No conservative is going to look at this guy and they know who he is. And now the left, they don't like him because he's going to be the spoiler or he's not drinking the Kool-Aid. I guess it's both, really, right? He's going to split the vote and he's not drinking the Kool-Aid.
It's both, and I think my only guess, and he is a smart guy. He's a smart businessman. He got people to pay $5 for coffee that's not very good. It's acrid. It's burnt, and all the while shunning conservatives for decades. My only guess is that he saw the ascendancy of President Trump and thought, hey, business people do have a place in this country, but he's going about it in all the wrong ways. And again, outside of the party structure, it just seems more and more like this is a Ross Perot type of initiative, and it's going to probably be largely self-funded if he ever even gets it off the ground. But it is interesting to circle back to present-day Starbucks, right? Because what I did as the head of the Free Enterprise Project was something very unique, and it's the first time we did it this year. I started filing shareholder resolutions largely with liberal companies, but with publicly traded companies across different industry spectrums. And I asked them, because, by the way, the liberals have been asking for this in their own version, so I decided to ask them in our version to adopt true diversity policies for their boards of directors. And when I say true diversity, I don't mean bean counting. I mean what someone thinks on the inside, their ethos, their beliefs, their viewpoint, and more and more and more as companies are pressing the political buttons. Ideological diversity is super important. And it's because, and again, I stole this model from the left. The left has all these board diversity proposals, but their proposals say this: for every open board seat, you must interview an underrepresented minority, and you must interview a woman. And you must do this so that your board avoids groupthink. And that's the key. I believe that's a noble goal. I think if you're a corporation, groupthink is a real risk to your investors. If no one in the room at the higher echelons is asking critical questions when you're making major decisions because you all think in lockstep, that's a really big problem. But if your solution to that problem is, well, you must interview a woman to avoid groupthink. Well, wait a minute. Not all women think the same based on the fact that they're a woman. I believe that's called sexism. And not all Black or Latino or Asian Americans think the same based on their skin color. I think that's called racism. So I asked Starbucks to look past gender, to look past race, and to consider people that actually think differently than everyone else in the room. And that is what they rejected. Imagine that. They want to hold on to their liberal enclave so strongly that they rejected any idea of inviting people in the room that think differently. And when you're talking about the room in Starbucks, differently would be a conservative.
Wow.
That was well put together.
Wow. Oh, wow. Justin, man, thank you for doing that. I mean, thank you from all of us. Everybody should embrace the idea of the market of ideas, free thought. That's part of the whole economic freedom thing, what we fought for, what America is. Wow, that's great that you did that. Unfortunately, though, we're out of time. We can't follow up on it anymore, but we would love to continue the discussion. Justin Danof from the National Center for Public Policy Research, and he's at the Free Enterprise Project, FEP. Justin, thanks for coming on the show. Great stuff. Great
gentlemen.
stuff.
Have a great day.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. Hey, Rich, I got to tell you, Justin's report.
I want to get him back
on the diversity in this country. And in fact, I mean, he's talking about Starbucks and diversity. I mean, why not have that conversation with Google, or not having that conversation with any of the tech giants?
All the tech giants. If you think it, he talks about Apple as well in some of his product discussion, what he's doing, what he's working on. And here you have Starbucks, evidently so liberal it's not liberal anymore. It doesn't allow diversity.
Wasn't liberal all about the marketplace of ideas and everybody
open-minded,
accepting and open-minding,
right?
Open-minded, and all of this, and peoples from all over the world with all sorts of backgrounds and all of that coming together as one and getting along and respecting.
That's
respecting.
Right. And I went to the Liberal Arts College at my university. That's what it was called, the Liberal Arts College. But we
totally
allowed
corrupted.
Different thoughts.
It's gotten to be totally corrupted.
We didn't beat people for thinking differently. I didn't bang into people because they were thinking differently. I didn't stifle their voice. If anything, we were fighting to hear more voices. In fact, we had so many voices going on for a while you couldn't hear anybody because it was so noisy. You know what I mean? But when you think about this, that at Starbucks, they're stifling diversity, and then you look at Apple. Now, Apple, my God, I'm all Apple. I'm all in with Apple. Like, everyone's got Apple products, but then they're stifling diversity on their board. They're not letting other people in and different ideas and so forth. When you actually look at some of the products that are coming out from Google, as you talked about, and Apple and all the other tech giants, they don't have a diverse point of view. I mean, seriously, go Google something about Trump, and you will not find a conservative newspaper or secondary information until you go through about 15 different very liberal, well, it's LA Times or the Boston Globe or the New York Times or the Washington Post, and all those other liberals, and Huffington Post and so forth. And then on the 16th page, you find the New York Post or something like that. Well, that's scary. I mean, that's very, very scary that it's going that way.
And we've talked a lot here about surveillance capitalism.
That's right.
The other scary thing that's happening in the tech world. Hey, look, I mean, we got some real big issues going on. We got some real big things happening. But, hey, Rich, I mean, we talked about today Brexit, right?
Hey,
yeah. Very important. We talked about tariffs. We talked about Democrat socialists. But what we haven't talked about is the Mueller report. So
oh, my God.
How do you figure that? I mean, hey, look, we're all about jobs and creating wealth and economic freedom and freedom of thought and freedom of enterprise, just in all getting along and all coming together and making this country even better than it's ever been before. But in order to do that, and the wealth that would create and the prosperity that would create, you can't just have these continuous investigations going on and all this people pontificating about, what all of this stuff means and reading the tea leaves in Rachel Maddow and MSNBC and going on for 2 years. And all of the talking heads, absolutely, he's going down, treason, worked with the Russians, the whole election, it was tainted, it was... And all of the power and the energy in our country that could have been put to use for something good, and everything in the wealth and the jobs and everything that could have created, lost, poof, because of this, I don't know, it was just a complete meltdown of stupidity.
Well, that's right. And by the way, since the Mueller reports come out, and MSNBC and the others can't not maintain this mantra of anti-Trump, collusion, Russia, he's a traitor to the country. Do you know that her numbers are down 500,000 from the week before on show to show?
But don't you have to know it was all a lie? It was all a lie. It was to take your mind and to bend it and to contaminate it. And to get into your mind with these thoughts and to make you do actions that was totally unnecessary.
Well, doesn't it scare you?
There was no crime.
Doesn't it scare you that the chair of the Intelligence Committee, there's an oxymoron for you, the chair of the Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, is still out there, as of today, tripling down that he knows better than Mueller. After 2,800 subpoenas, 500 witnesses, all these, thousands and thousands and millions of documents that went, nothing. He says he has the evidence. He believes in it. And then they're following up. There are going to be 81 different people that have to come forward. Whether they do or not, I don't know. But how do you have the head of the Intelligence Committee saying that, knowing it's not true? That is really upsetting.
And it's dangerous.
That's worse than Maddow. That's worse than her. Worse.
Well, Rich, we're out of time. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
I'll hold the thought.
We could have went on and on and on, and boy, there's enough things to talk about. But we're out of time. We're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.